फाइक सिद्दीकी शो फ्रॉम न्यूयॉर्क। हम फोकस करते हैं पाकिस्तानी अमेरिकन के मसाइल और उनके मुमकिना हल। पाकिस्तानी अमेरिका में हर फील्ड में नुमाया मुकाम किस तरह हासिल कर लेते हैं। कम्युनिटी में शादियों का मसला, डिवोर्स का बढ़ता हुआ रेशो, डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस, टीनेजर्स के मसाइल, अमरीकी सियासत में हमारा किरदार। फाइक सिद्दीकी शो। अस्सलाम वालेकुम। Khawateen Hazrat, from today we are starting a new segment in our show, and the name of the new segment is Be My Guest. If you have a story that can guide or motivate people, please share with us. Without further ado, let's talk to Sister Noel here, and she had a great story to share with us. Sister, welcome to the show. Indeed, it's a pleasure, honor having a brave sister like you with us. I want you to first introduce yourself to my audience.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Noel Amta Shahid, and I am from the United States of America. I became Muslim when I was 17 years old. I started studying the Deen of Islam on my own when I was 7 years old because there were certain qualities that I saw in my Muslim peers in the school, in the public school, at 7 years old, that I wanted to understand better. I wanted to understand their peace and the ease at which they did the things in school and they lived their life. So I started to inquire about Islam at 7. When I was a little girl, let's just put it this way, my father died of a disease called AIDS. He conceived me with this disease. He didn't know he had it because he got it in a blood transfusion overseas in his country. And so when he died, it was a very new thing and people were very ignorant. And that girl that I used to love to study Islam with so much, the main girl I used to study with, in my class, her mother told her, after I had been honest about the death of my father, told her, you cannot play with this girl anymore. And so the next day I came to school, one of my favorite friends, I salam alaikum to her. She says, walaikum salam, I'm sorry I cannot play with you because I told my mom what you said and she told me I cannot talk to you anymore.
Sister, I came to know that after accepting Islam, once you were living like a life of a homeless. What is that story?
My mother started to become sick, so she couldn't work as much, and she worked less hours, and we wound up not being able to pay all the rent and getting evicted. So I made sure before we got completely thrown out that my mother had a place to go. I made sure she had an apartment that she could always afford no matter what. And then at the last minute, I made sure that I could find a friend. I had a friend that I said, I'm going to stay in their house for 3 or 4 months, save my money, and we're going to get a new apartment for both of us again and be fine. This was the plan, because this is what people do a lot of times in the United States when they get in this situation. They stay with somebody, they save up, and they go. But what wound up happening at the last minute was my friend turned around and said, Noel, I have my own family problem. I can't help you. And they wound up telling me I cannot stay. I didn't beg them. I said, okay, I understand. I can't stay. No is no. So I had a car because where I'm from, everyone has to have car. There's really not bus. I wound up living in that car patiently, because I trusted that I would only be in there for a little while. That's what I felt like. 3 months, 4 months, I'll get out of this situation, I thought. But it didn't happen that way because the economy was beginning to collapse in that time of the history.
So why didn't you contact any mosque nearby?
You know why? Because in the Muslim community, I'm sorry to say it, but there's a lot of good people in the world, I found out. This is a thing I had to learn on my own through trusting Allah and things of that nature. But coming from where I come from in life, you don't talk to people about this stuff because people will take advantage. And even I've had Muslims try to marry me to their relatives so that I can get them a green card and things of this nature, and treat me like, oh, I'm going to help you, you're my sister. And then they are really trying to abuse me, or they're trying to use me for a ulterior motive.
How do you get connected with ICNA Relief?
I was working about 2 jobs, and on my way to my next job, a couple of times I see this sister with a niqab, and she stood out to me because she looked so beautiful. And we would talk a little bit, and eventually we became a little bit close. Within like 3 times of seeing each other, that we just like to talk to each other. And she sensed that something wasn't right with my life, So she asked me, sister, I don't know what's going on with you, but you seem like you're going through something. Because I did indicate to her that I kind of needed a stable place to stay. And she said, I would like you to know about some place called ICNA Relief. And maybe you can go talk to the social worker. And you can see what they can do for you. There's a women's shelter there, and a lot of people, they might not be aware of this, because a lot of people, nobody tell me about it before, but there's a women's shelter. And she gave me the address, and she even had the social worker, aware of me, so that when I came, they knew who I was. And I, for the first time in my life, got to talk to somebody about my life in 3 years. Besides my creator, I could actually talk to another human being. It was a hard step for me to take, because normally when you're homeless and you tell somebody, they take advantage of your situation. They try to exploit you in some way, shape, or form. So to actually sit down and talk to another Muslim sister who is sincere and wants to help me, it was a turning point in my life, because the same day I talked to her, within maybe an hour, she's like, she understood what I was going through. She didn't ask me, oh, why were you staying in this place? What's wrong with your family? She didn't ask me these types of disrespectful, culturally ignorant type of questions that people would ask usually. What is the problem? Don't you come from this? Don't you come from... No, she understood, and she took me upstairs to see where I was going to be sleeping. And for the first time in 3 years, I saw my bed.
First time in 3 years. So how did you feel that way?
I felt so good, because I don't know, it's not that I didn't believe I wouldn't eventually get a place, but it's kind of hard to believe after a certain amount of time goes by, or they really care, that you're ever going to be able to have a normal life again. You believe eventually you're going to do it, and you're working for it, but to actually see a bed that's mine, with a clean sheets that's mine, is such a beautiful thing. It changed my life a lot, because I needed that. And then she showed me my closet. I opened up the closet, and I have now a place I can hang my clothes and decide what I want to wear. It's so much different than living in a suitcase and living this way. Now I have a bed. I have a bathroom in the same house. I have a refrigerator I can put food in. It's like I have a place where I can exist as a human being, and not... Before that, I'm like living on the other side of a window, looking at you, wondering about your comforts of life. I'm not envying you or anything, because I know Allah gives me what I have for a reason and what you have for a reason. But I'm wondering if you appreciate what you have.
So how long do you stay there?
So I stayed in ICNA for about maybe 9 months to a year. They were very patient with me. I wasn't just there like staying there doing nothing. I was working. And first I was working, remember I told you, in these dead-end jobs, restaurant, things like this. I wound up stopping this job and getting a better job in ICNA. I went to take a vocational class and study how to be a certified home health aide, so I can take care of the elderly and the sick in their homes. And I studied medical billing. And I studied how to work in office and use Excel and PowerPoint and all that.
You mean you study all these while you were living in the shelter?
I studied about 3 vocations while I was living in the shelter. And that was a great thing for me to be able to do. But the most important thing I appreciate about ICNA Relief is that they gave me a place for me to be a human being again. To be a human being that can go in a room and turn on a light. That can get up in the middle of the night and use a toilet. That can go in the refrigerator and pour herself a glass of milk if she wants. And to keep my clothes in a closet of my own. And to be a part of the world again, a human being. Because for a while I didn't feel like a human being.
So how many sisters were there when you were there?
There was, I believe, 10 sisters in the ICNA Relief. They were from all different parts of the world. Some were from the United States. Some were from overseas that just got here and were having problems because, it's hard to come to the United States. Everybody think it's going to not be so difficult, and that you'd be surprised. And there were sisters that were studying and they just got in a bad situation while they were in their studies. There were sisters who were abused. There were sisters who were not Muslim. There were people in there that were not Muslim, a few. You know, because not a lot of non-Muslims want to stay in a Muslim shelter, but ironically enough, the Muslim shelter is very tolerant and doesn't force its religion on anybody. ICNA Relief is tolerant, they respect people, and some of those people wound up taking their shahada because they were just being treated respectfully. It was nice to watch, you know. There's all kind of people in there from the world.
Sister Noel, you have any message for our viewers?
Yes, I believe that I want to tell you to support ICNA Relief because it gives women a chance to have the same life that you would wish for your mother or your sister or your daughter in the future. Because that's what we are. We are the mothers, sisters, and daughters of this ummah. And it's very difficult in this world with the conditions of the people sometimes to be a woman and to be able to have a second chance to live a human life like you do was a beautiful experience that could only be made possible by people's donations and by people's caring and people's rahmah, people's charity. So that's what I would like to suggest, is that people, that they open their heart and that when they have extra, they give it to ICNA Relief, because they're a genuine organization. They don't mistreat anybody. They actually respect the people that they help with dignity, and they give them a new start.